A section of Canada's Indian Act and a Quebec statute providing for the power to expropriate Kahnawake land for the bridge was passed in 1928, and substantial discussions of the taking of the land for the Mercier Bridge occurred in Parliament in 1930. In 1932, the Crown authorized the taking of 15 acres of Kahnawake land, with an additional 2.1 acres taken in 1936 for the modification of approaches to the bridge. Construction on the Mercier Bridge began in 1932 and was opened to traffic on June 22, 1934, 10 months ahead of schedule, with a toll of 50 cents for an automobile and driver. Before the bridge was built, there was a ferry service. Mohawks received a token to cross the bridge free of charge.
Yeah, there were tolls for the non-Indian people, and the Indian people were given a token, so they wouldn't have to pay to cross the bridge. I have one of the tokens here. It says Mohawk, Mercier Bridge, Villa Sal, Kahnawake. On one side it has a picture of the bridge. Then on the other side it has a member of the band, free pass, number 2824, Indian, Kahnawake. That's the token that was used to cross the bridge.
It was a toll bridge for the first 6 months, and all residents of Kahnawake had a bridge pass, and it states right on it, a Kahnawake Indian. And this went on, but it was only for 6 months, and then that stopped. And it gave people more access to the city, but then as time went on, and you can see parts of the old bridge are still there, were returned directly to the tunnel, and then now you know why it doesn't look in proportion to why the tunnel looks like it's on an angle.
At the time, the Department of Indian Affairs appointed Indian agents to carry out the affairs of the Mohawks of Kahnawake.
Well, the Indian agent at that time that I knew was Francois Brisebois. He was the main person, the original person that was there when I was growing up, and then after that they appointed, I guess, an Indian person here became the Indian agent after. I guess it was Seaway, it was Clarence Saylor, and then after that it was a Frank Jetty, and after that it was another non-Indian guy, and then eventually it petered out when we said, well, we don't need them there anymore.
The Mercier Bridge was designed by 11 French-Canadian engineers who were all graduates of the École Polytechnique de Montréal and was built by the Dominion Bridge Company Limited under a government-funded work program.
Well, I guess one thing is when I saw it being built, actually, there was a, if you want to call it a positive side to it. A lot of the men in the community worked on the bridge. My father worked there, and I remember that every Friday going there and getting his pay. He'd take us and we have lunch. There was a little canteen there or something like that. But on a whole, it was all, I think, a lot of major dissatisfaction because of the fact that, it was the Seaway, and now it was all of this.
The Mercier Bridge connects the Montreal borough of LaSalle on the island of Montreal with Kahnawake on the south shore of the St. Lawrence River. It carries Route 132, originally Route 4. It is slightly less than a mile in length and contains 4 steel trusses on its first section. The height of the bridge varies from 41 feet to 110 feet, with the highest sections located over the St. Lawrence Seaway. The bridge is named after former Premier of Quebec, Honoré Mercier.
When you read about these things that are happening, you always find that there has been planned, quite a bit ahead, and we were never informed. And the problem with that was that we were supposed to be protected by the government of Canada with their Department of Indian Affairs or whatever was supposed to be protecting our interests. But since they were in cahoots with the government in planning to take the land, then they didn't tell us about it.
Well, I remember when the Mercier Bridge was there and the land that was taken was clearly visible before the Seaway. It housed what people don't know or don't remember was a provincial police station at the foot of the bridge, or the road that went to 9C and the road that came into Kahnawake, main Old Malone Highways, what you call it now. So there was a police station there, and there was I guess Mayo's gas station was on the bottom there by the tunnel.
The higher section over the St. Lawrence Seaway was added in the late 1950s. In August 1963, the Quebec Department of Public Works sanctioned the construction of a second bridge downstream from the first. This increased the number of lanes from 2 to 4.
I guess one thing that comes to my mind is the expansion of the Mercier Bridge in the 1960s, which was the original Mercier Bridge was only 2 lanes, and then around the same time the Seaway was built, the Mercier Bridge was twinned, so there were 2 bridges right parallel to each other. And this meant and the Seaway meant that both of those bridges had to be built higher so that the boats could go underneath. It also meant that the approaches to the bridge had to be much more intrusive to the community because the bridge was so much higher that the approaches had to be a lot wider and longer in scale, and the bridge itself looms over the community in a way that it didn't originally.
There was an arch on it already, but they had to change this when they had to accommodate the Seaway. Okay, so there was already that was done. The Seaway was completed in 1957. So it was only, and then the second part to the bridge was done in 1963. And at that time it matched the existing one that was there. So it looks like it was all done at the same time. It was high, yeah, very high. And even today we're looking at it now, it's, should it be that high? Do you really have ships that big that go all the way through? Because even the shipping industry changed. Everything has its time.
They had to build the Mercier Bridge, they had to expand it and build a new one to accommodate the ocean-going vessels. So all that expropriation in the 50s was all done at the same time. It was like one big sweep.
An estimated 29.5 million vehicles use the bridge every year.
I guess with the amount of cars that use it, see, we're only 10% of the people that use it. 90% of it are not, it's used by outsiders, not us. We're only 10%. And so, but the 10%, we're paying the price for everybody. You know, it's not a fair balance over here. So, but anyway, we're in this thing. I don't like it. It's sort of cut off things left and right. You can't cross the highway. You can't do this. And it's like wherever the government looks, there's always a way it's either figure a way out how to take more land. No matter what the plan is, it's always take more land.
The original down ramp from the Mercier Bridge went right through the tunnel in Kahnawake, along the main road known as the Old Malone Highway, and out towards Chateauguay, onward to Malone, New York.
So it was a fairly narrow bridge, and I believe it was only a 2-lane bridge. So it wasn't very high, and then it would just, the old structure, I think that's still there today. Instead of going up, it turned slightly to the right and went down.
I remember when the first ramp that came down from the Mercier Bridge, the original ramp, came right through town. It came through the tunnel.
After the Mercier Bridge was built and opened in the mid-1930s, it brought unwanted traffic right through the center of Kahnawake. But Kahnawake took advantage.
One of the impacts that I know about, not from my archival research, but from speaking to people, is that the original Mercier Bridge, the one that was built in the 1930s, the approach to it came straight through the village. So it produced a lot of traffic in the village, but it also produced a lot of opportunities for business right in the town itself. And so that road through the downtown was lined with shops and was a busy commercial hub.
It was more as native handicraft. And most of it took place today were like the Old Malone Highway. It was along the highway where you've seen all of the native handicraft. Or what restaurants we had, there was a tea room. And basically that's what the community was. It was just, you know, it was not a big major thing going on besides the Indian village.
Kahnawake's boatmen, who were making a living transporting people and goods across the St. Lawrence River, were hit hardest.
The ferry ran about a year, maybe a year after, and closed down because now it became an unnecessary commodity. The boatmen such as Mr. Malush, had a ferry, had a power boat. Wilfred Rice had a boat. What do you call it? Freddie Stacy, Howard Stacy's brother, had a boat, and there was one where there was about 4 boats that you could choose which one you didn't owe any money to go on, you know. But it was inexpensive. My mother told me it was 10 cents, you know, to go, and 10 cents to come back with your groceries and whatnot. And you went shopping, so the ferry boats were there, and said it was quite entertaining.
But the economic boom quickly faded.
The construction of the second part of that bridge in the 1960s removed that traffic from the village and caused a lot of people to go out of business or to have to move to the highway.
Yes, because there was a lot of land and a lot of homes on this side of the tunnel. Before going under the tunnel and coming into town, there was quite a bit of homes there that had to be expropriated also for the ramp coming from the bridge to go down. Under there, as it stands now, there was a lot of homes under there.
Oh, well, that's the Meyer that had the gas station, and Stanley Meyer that had the TP. And all along the Norton, they had a bodywork garage. They had to go on Old Chattagee Road. They all felt bad, but what are you going to do?
My father-in-law lost his business because they dug right in front of the tunnel, and they blocked off the river and they put the ditch in. So, I mean, I call it the ditch, the same on the seaway. He had no way to go. He had to go into the swamp area, and how do you get there? I mean, carrying all his gear, you had to go all the way up to the other end of the point and come back down again, or you had to go walk across the train bridge. He couldn't get to where his nets were.
And somewhere, I guess, in that area where the ramp was under construction, I do recall, you know, driving on this, well, on a dirt road, dusty, and to me, there were already pillars and whatever else, because I distinctly remember going under. To me, I have a memory of going under something in this car, and that it was really bumpy.
One of the funniest things I've seen during the build was these big giant Euclid dump trucks. They used to scoop up a lot of this clay, and then when they used to go up on top of the hill across the street from where I live today, they'd lift the bump, they'd try to go to dump, and when they dumped, the whole front of the truck came off the ground and was stuck because the clay would stuck in the back of the truck and it wouldn't slide out. But it was amazing to watch this big giant bucket that was just scraping along, and they had the other land scrapers making clay mountains where the houses are and all this, dumping all the rock and clay over there. And I remember people saying that land is useless.
The second Mercier Bridge expansion expropriated more land, resulting in the building of 2 ramps. The ramps went east towards St. Catherine La Prairie, called Route 132, and the other one went west towards Chattagee, called Route 138. One Kahnawake family's land and home was expropriated to construct the 138 ramp within mere feet from the home.
Well, I was born in Kahnawake, and the house that was expropriated from near the golf club, the Kahnawake Golf Club, is the house that my mother left to give birth to me in the hospital almost 78 years ago.
The Kahnawake, by near the Kahnawake Golf Club, and you see, way up the highway, yeah, there's quite a bit of land there that was taken for the overhead highway. When it was short, well, it was different, but when they made the overhead highway, I'm sure a lot of people were let down with that. Like I say, they had to move away from their, well, the older ones, you know what can they do? The young ones, well, it's like they always want to move forward. You know, like they didn't like farming anyway, most of them, so what are you going to do? But the old ones felt it, you know.
I can remember when we stayed, it would be right in front of, the house would be right in front of the Kahnawake Golf Club. And When the ramp came down, well, it passed in front of our house, I would say maybe 50 feet. And that's when then we were told, well, I can't remember it, but it was told to my parents that this is what was going to go on, and obviously that's what they did. We had neighbors, one on the left side of us and one on the right side of us, and everybody, we all had to leave. We really didn't have no choice, because if you stayed, you would be like squeezed in with the golf club and the highway, the ramp. So everybody left.
Bella's daughter Marlon remembers hearing the older people describe the area.
My mother, my father, whoever, but her friends, you know, again, I guess in the summer, you know, the season when we were out by the golf club. So when they would come to town, come to Jodalil's or whatever, or visit relatives and things, you know, that were in the village, well, I do remember them talking about these fields that they would walk through in the dark, and especially if it wasn't a very starry night, because of course there weren't any light posts. So they just knew their way, and there would have been ruts from wagons, and I guess, I mean, there weren't very many cars then either, I would say. And so sometimes they would say that it was so dark that they would even maybe all of a sudden feel a warm breath on their face, and of course get afraid, like, is it something, you know, out of this world? But it would be a cow, say. So that's how close they were. And then they'd have to watch, you know, they might walk into mud pies. But you know, I just recall them talking about, well, I mean, there was just so much more free, you know, and open property, so to speak.
It was sort of like our summer home, because that's how much it wasn't connected with the village. It was like in the summer, we left the village, we had a home in the village, but we went to stay at this house near the golf club, because it was like a summer home with all the land. You had no neighbors in front of you or in back of you but the golf club. So it was like a vacation home.
One of my very vivid memories, and it was like so exciting, was in the morning hearing these horses, a herd of horses. Now, of course, to me, again, picture a little girl. I don't know how many there were, but I would be able to go on this porch, and it was just a flat porch. There wasn't any railing that I recall. And of course, they would always make sure, like, be careful that I don't go too close to the end. And I remember a kind of a long driveway, I guess, with perhaps a gate at the end, I don't know. But anyway, for whatever reason, these horses would just all come gallop like really, really close to the porch. And I would just be there, just kind of oohing and aahing at this, you know, at this site.
Well, when I left, it wasn't like the vehicles weren't passing yet. They had just started the construction, you know, breaking up the land and putting all the pillars that the ramp was going to come down on, heading towards Chattagee.
When Bella and her husband Donald Kane decided to build their own house by her childhood home, the construction was stopped abruptly when they were told that the land was going to be expropriated to make way for the Mercier Bridge Ramp 138. Eventually, Bella Kane's childhood homestead by the Kahnawake Golf Club was sold and then moved to the village area.
The way they used to move it was like a little group of men that they didn't move it like they do today on a flat bed or anything. It was like on big, like logs tied with something, and they put the house on there, and that I remember.
And so I remember, you know, standing on the road and being, again, like in total amazement that how can this house be moving on the road, you know, coming to where it is.
One thing is for sure, the impacts of the Mercier Bridge will be felt for generations to come.
I really feel saddened that you know, that we don't realize, you really sit down and think about what we lost, you cannot bring any of that back at all.
Yeah, it's still, because we know it was imposed, it wasn't built for us, it wasn't for our convenience. It's so rare that anything is built for our convenience, so we know we use it when we have to use it.
The Mercier Bridge didn't really have any impact because it opened the doors for us to I guess, be able to go into Lachine and utilize the facilities that were there, you know, and we used it as a center of commerce for many, many years. So to some degree, it was a benefit for us. The boatmen complained about it, you know, and but I guess it brought about another industry that was the taxi companies, you know, that taxied up to 6th Avenue in Lachine. So it could be said that it was a good thing and a bad thing at that period of time.
Well, certainly it's disrupted our way, although I'm sure if the Mercier Bridge was never built, if there was never any expropriation, we would not have lived the same way. We would have changed, you know, culturally, and we would have advanced somehow, some way. But having, you know, the big, huge structure there and those piers and all of that really is an eyesore, you know, if you look at it from that point of view. I've seen pictures, you know, and I remember a bit about pre-Seaway and pre-Mercier Bridge extension and all that. And that was a very, very lovely land. Beautiful, you know. And I think in the minds and the hearts of people too, it did something to us. Created perhaps a lot of heartache for people who remember what things were like.